What's up, H-Town? Welcome to the Believe in Astros podcast, your home for all things Astros, with your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and Astros broadcaster and former third baseman Jeff Blum. Now, here's Balke and Blummer.
What is up, Astros fans? Welcome to episode 66 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. I'm Jeff Balke, alongside my partner Jeff Blum, way up in the Pacific Northwest for the weekend for the Mariners. I'm sure it's much cooler there than it is here today. Oof. Good Lord. It's a warm, humid oven.
Yeah, that's what I like. That's what I love about Houston is that it's going to be smoking red ass hot in the summer, and you know what you're going to get. Up here in the Northwest, it's 72 the day you fly in, and then it's 45 2 days later.
Dude, last night I saw people breathing smoke when they're out on the field. I'm like, wow. Well, what's the old JMI right now?
Yeah, the JMI is not good. She's a trooper and hung out on the field the entire time last night, but more often than not, she'll be up in the booth next to me because there's just a slight smidgen of a heater underneath the counter that we work on, and that saves our life a little bit. But I mean, the breeze comes in, dude, and it just blows right through you.
Well, especially because it's so damp up there. So it's just that wet, damp, cold.
If you want to know what a damp cold is that gets into like your bone marrow, come to Seattle.
I want to visit the Pacific Northwest. It's one of the only parts of America that I've never been.
Great city.
But I feel like it's going to have to be in like August or something where I can hopefully temper that weather just a little bit.
Well, you increase your odds a little bit, but there's no guarantees.
Exactly. Yes, we are still rocking the birthday song. At the beginning, First of all, Blummer's birthday last week. But, also Jose Altuve's birthday today.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Altuve. Mine is tomorrow. Less important. But it's an important week for us in Houston and, frankly, for humanity.
Yeah.
Because we have so many good birthdays this week. How is Seattle other than the cold? I mean, we had a win last night, so that's good news.
No, it's great. I mean, if you want to do a visit to some of these American League West teams, go to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Completely skip Oakland, obviously, but go to the Great Northwest. There used to be a plethora of restaurants up here to go visit. Unfortunately, a lot of them have been shut down, but there's still a few that are floating around that are still open and really good. Going down to the fish market never gets old when they're chucking, salmon all over the place. Mm-hmm. The original Starbucks, if you're into that. But there's also one of the nastiest things I've ever seen in my life here in Seattle.
And what is this?
If you are walking in one of the alleys near the fish market and you're chewing gum, there's a place to deposit it on the wall.
Oh, no.
And I think a couple thousand people have done that over the years, and it is nasty.
No, let's don't. It sounds
there's
like
a gum wall. It's bad.
That's not all right. I mean, there was a reason in the night. I mean, you heard all the grunge music that came out of Seattle, the weather, the heroin. I mean, it was all, it's all part
Flannel.
of the deal. But the gum, that's like
there's a gum wall.
I immediately think of
awful.
Elf when he's walking around pulling gum off of the underside of things. That's my first thought. It's like, leave it alone. It's not candy. It's not free candy.
No.
Oh, that's nasty. I could do without that one.
Sorry to bring that up.
That's
Stadium
okay.
is awesome.
Oh, I'm sure the stadium's incredible. I mean, look, Seattle does things right when it comes to that sort of thing. So I'm sure it's beautiful. We're doing this Saturday morning. I was out fishing yesterday. I did not catch anything. My buddy caught a nice we expected it to be overcast, maybe a little rainy. Instead, the sun burst out about 8:30, and that just kind of deadened everything. We were in my tricked out canoe in Galveston State Park. Dude, you should see that canoe. It's got a trolling motor. I have a fish finder. It's rigged. What? Oh no, dude, it's rigged. It's one of the few things in my life that I've ever really customized, and it's tricked.
That sounds bougie.
Yeah, it's very bougie. But my buddy caught a nice sized black drum. We released it. The best part of the day probably was, it's nice being out. obviously. But we went to Shrimp and Stuff for lunch, and I had a po' boy, and that was.
There you go.
So I collected my my seafood winnings at the dining table rather than in the water.
You had to purchase them.
Yeah, exactly. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, obviously on YouTube. I'm going to have a couple special photos to show you on YouTube. I'll explain in a moment. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with us. Give us a follow on Twitter and on Instagram at Believe in Astros. You can find me at Jeff Balke and Blummer at Blummer27. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tons of always new stuff coming. And thanks to everyone who's given us 5 stars on Apple. And just, go ahead and do it again. I'm not saying you could get another email address and redo it. I'm just saying that that's a possibility if you're considering it. Obviously,
yeah, it's like all-star voting. Just get that. Get that phantom email and keep voting, dude.
Exactly. Get a new IP address, get a VPN or something, work on it. Look, you guys know tech. Figure it out. Obviously, send us your comments and questions. For example, was Wander Franco showboating when he tossed the ball in the air before throwing it to first? Oof. This is a question that will be posed to you later in the broadcast, Blummer, because I have a specific reason for asking this, mainly because a listener posed this question and thinks that you and I will disagree about it. So I'll bring that up later. I also, if you're watching the YouTube version, let me just say you're welcome, because Blummer mentioned last week about having some dyed-haired photos. Now, I did not find those, sadly, but what I did find was real treasure, and that is a couple of baseball cards from Blummer's treasured past.
Cool.
One from the Harrisburg Senators, in which Blummer looks to be roughly 16 years old. And the other one from the Vermont Expos, in which he appears to be maybe 17 years old.
Yeah.
And they are both just spectacular. But also, I believe only the Expos one is autographed. And available on Amazon for your purchasing enjoyment, if you so choose. All proceeds do not go to Blummer, I think, sadly. But these are some spectacular artifacts. I'm going to tell you. When I found them, I know the Vermont is the one where you had to shower in like a barn or something, right? Wasn't that the one that you told me?
Vermont was actually good. It was Auburn, New York, where the Astros played. I was in Expo playing against the Astros, and they were in. It was bad. I mean, it was pallets on mud in a shower.
I remember you telling me that. That is so nasty.
Yeah, I did find steel-toed shower shoes, man. It was brutal.
I did find one photo of you at an autograph signing session. Your hair wasn't exactly blonde, but it was straight up in the air like Guy Fieri, and it felt like it was. There was a lot of product being used there.
An extreme amount. Yeah, I couldn't stand next to a lighter candle.
So let's. I wanted to start the podcast on a somewhat amusing note, because we have terrible news to deal with, and that is Luis Garcia. If you haven't heard, if you've been living under a rock somewhere, Luis Garcia is going to need a Tommy John surgery. I was at dinner last night with my in-laws, my wife, and some friends, and when I saw it, I was just, it just felt like somebody hit me in the chest. And of course, my father-in-law is a big Astros fan, and his first thing was saying, "I told you they should have paid Verlander the $40 million." But yeah, just horrible for Luis Garcia. I mean, what do you do? How do you handle something like that when you're given that kind of a news?
It's a gut punch to us. I can't imagine what it was to Luis Garcia. These are right in the middle of your potential arbitration years where you're going to go out and earn a paycheck and get paid a little bit. And now you see that thwarted by the bad luck of having an injury like this. And what's unfortunate and makes it probably even worse for a guy like Luis Garcia is that the 2 starts previous to injury were wipeout.
100%.
It was like 13 innings, 16 strikeouts, and he found the release point. The velocity was coming back. The cutter was looking great with the shape that he had to it, and then pop, it's all over. So devastating news for Luis Garcia, obviously, but also to this rotation and for this team, the Houston Astros.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I feel awful for Luis Garcia, but it's like when somebody, if somebody passes away, you're like, well, at least their problems are over. I'm the one that has to deal with what's left. And with the Astros as a team and for its fans, Now we're left with a gaping hole in the lineup, in a lineup that, let's be honest, we had counted on it to be good, sort of top to bottom without Verlander, who's so steady, despite his injury earlier this year with the Mets. First McCullers, then Urquidy, now Garcia. Apparently Urquidy is shut down. I think he'll be down for a little bit, but McCullers is throwing from a full bullpen session today, as I read, which is good news. So we're talking at least a month probably for either one of those guys before they're back. They're starting JP France today. They have Brandon Bielak called up. And as you mentioned off the air, we were talking about it. Now Forrest Whitley and Dubin have shut it down, saying they're injured. Whether they're injured or not, we don't know. But, maybe they're just pissed. But, I mean, the 40-man roster is looking a little thin. It is looking a little lean. What do you do? If you're the GM, Blummer, what do you do?
I don't know what you can do. You just you got to bide your time. The tough thing about knowing that you have a guy going on the injured list for as long as Luis Garcia is normally that he's a 28 start per year guy. Yeah. And you've gotten maybe 6 starts out of him. So how do you cover the other 22 to 25 starts? And that's where you start to stress a little bit, because you can have your JP Francis, your Brandon Bielaks, your Dubins, or some of these guys come in and fill spots for 2, 3, 4, or 5 starts. And you're like, okay, we can cover that up and wait for Urquidy or Garcia to come back. But you can't do that with Garcia now. And that's where I think you start to stress a little bit, because is JP France or a Brandon Bielak, they're going to have to cover, like you said, until June, maybe 5 or 6 starts until you get the Lance McCullers Jr. back, until you figure out what's going on with Jose Urquidy and get him back. So that creates a lot of stress, because after that, like you just said, you've got a Dubin on the 7-day injured list. You've got Whitley dealing with a decelerate or muscle in his back. He's not on the injured list, but he's day-to-day. So there's really not that insurance that you need. If one of these other guys go down, you would imagine Ronel Blanco's the next guy in line. But once you get past that, there ain't nothing left. And that's where I think Dana Brown's going to stress a little bit and try and figure out what he can do or what's out there and available, because that was not addressed in the offseason.
Yeah, and you do have to kind of look at this too and put this in the bigger context of baseball. There was another pitcher that went down just the other day. Oh my gosh.
Balky, man. There are arms going down all over the place.
It's just unreal. I mean, granted, it's good that the Astros aren't, they're not alone in this boat, but I mean, the pitchers that are going down this year,
become an epidemic, man.
It's unbelievable. And of course, no one like we talked about before, we don't have the data to know what exactly it is. If it is the pitch clock, not all of these guys pitched in the WBC, so you can't necessarily blame that. It's a huge deal. So I think you have to start thinking, if you're Dana Brown, you have to start considering what is available. You've got to start thinking about, because the Astros, they're in third place, they're only a game and a half out of first. They probably still could win the AL West with one pitcher eventually, because I don't think anybody is going to break out and suddenly turn around and be great. But it doesn't matter. You still have to figure out what you're going to do, because this is a team with bigger aspirations than winning their division.
100%. But the only saving grace is that your bullpen has been lights out. I know Abreu gave up a couple of cheap hits and a run yesterday in the game against Seattle. But at the same time, asking a JP France or a Brandon Bielak to go out there and give you 6 or 7 is out of the question. You just got to go out there and give me a strong 5, qualify for the decision, and let's hand it off to the bullpen and see what these guys can do. Right. And I think that start by Christian Javier last night, going 7 innings, was huge for the Astros, because they only had to use Abreu for 1 inning. Presley threw 5 pitches to get the save on some funky plays and terrible base running by the Seattle Mariners. Right. So he did a great job of protecting the bullpen leading into this Saturday-Sunday matchup with JP France and Brandon Bielak going. But if they can get 5 strong out of those guys consistently and keep them within reach in these games, I think that's all you're asking of these guys. Yeah, I definitely want to delve into that in just a second. I do want to mention that at least some of the injuries, we're going to start seeing some guys back.
Both Michael Brantley, who, by the way, did you see his numbers in AAA?
Yeah, he's raking.
He hit like 320 and had 7 walks. Like 7 walks. It's insane.
Yeah, it's like playing tiddlywinks for him, man.
I know, it's unreal. So he's going to be back on Monday. So will Chas McCormick, who didn't fare quite as well at AA. But both of those guys will be back.
I think he hit a bomb yesterday.
Yeah, he did hit a bomb yesterday. He's just, he's hitting like 219 or something, but who cares? The deal is they're both going to be back, which obviously increases your depth from a hitting perspective. And it feels like at this point, if you are the Astros, you're going to have to lean more heavily on your offense. Altuve, the report on him is that he's gripping a bat. He's fielding grounders. They're saying maybe another end of May, beginning of June, something like that. So you've still got another month without your starting second baseman. But this is the time where they're going to have to start utilizing those bats. I mean, Jose Abreu is going to have to turn it around. You've got to do something at this point, right?
Yeah, or else, I mean, I don't think he's hit lower than 6 until one time this year. He may be hitting 7th or 8th in this lineup once you get a Brantley and Altuve back in this lineup, because then you're going to replace Chad. You're going to, I would imagine you're going to have like almost a 3-man platoon when you get Altuve back, because of course, Dubon's going to give some days off to Altuve at second base, but then you're going to have Dubon, Myers, McCormick in center field. Right. You're going to be rotating Brantley and Alvarez and Jolks in left field, if not giving Tucker a couple of DH days. If you can move Brantley over to right field and cover him for a couple and get him off his legs. But I don't know if you noticed this. In the box score of yesterday's game, there is a certain Michael Brantley who started in left field, finished at first base for the first time since 2008 or something. TK was telling me that he played first base. So that was in A-ball or AA for Michael Brantley. But that's kind of a curious situation that Brantley did take some reps at first base.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because it tells me 2 things. I saw that as well. And it tells me a couple things. First, it tells me that they're not considering playing Yainer Diaz at first, which Yainer, when he came up, he was a catcher and a first baseman, right?
Yep. But
yes,
I'm watching batting practice yesterday, and guess who's on the foul territory on the first base side with the first baseman's glove, taking fungos from Joe Espada?
See this, Blummer?
Diaz.
This is why. This is the benefit of you as a human, is that you're down there seeing these things.
Yeah,
that's great. I'm glad they got to get Yainer Diaz some more attempts. Look, we all love Machete, right? But there are some people.
But Yainer looks good, man.
I mean, and there are some people like on Twitter, like one of our friends, Susie from Bourbon and Baseball, whose head is about to explode every game when Yainer isn't playing. You've got to start thinking about. I mean, I know that it's harder for Dusty to break out of some of these routines. He is a creature of habit, and he's been doing this a long time and been very successful.
Extreme loyalty to these guys too.
He does, and I understand there's some delicate psyches in this when it comes to hitting and all that. But man, you've got to get the guys who are hitting in the game, because the Astros aren't great offensively right now.
Yeah, and Yainer hasn't proven that he can be that good pinch hitter off the bench too. He gets a little frantic and swings a little bit early in some of those pinch hitting appearances because he wants to hit a 4-run home run. I can't blame him on that, because coming off the bench is, that's like it's an acquired taste or an acquired talent that you got to work on a little bit. But when he has games like he did when he was I think it was that Hunter Brown game where Hunter got knocked out, but he had a couple of knocks in that game. I understand the loyalty. I understand wanting to go with your guy, but at the same time, if you can't, you should be able to throw a guy out there who's not playing a lot. If he gets a couple of knocks, throw him another game. See if he can't get a couple more, boost those numbers and boost his confidence.
Agreed. I think you've just got to give these guys opportunities. Like when Brantley comes back too, I don't think you could just bury Jolks on the bench.
No,
I mean he's playing too well, and
he's still hitting his outs are hard.
Right. Well, I think the thing that's great about Jolks too is you can see the guy. He does see the ball really well. He sees the strike zone really well. Well, what qualifies for a strike zone in Major League Baseball these days? Yeah, I'm not gonna. Anyway, as I said when I was flying solo, I'm like, it's the strike zone. There's no, it is the strike zone.
It's not an interpretation.
There's no interpretation. They give you a strike zone. Anyway, I made the analogy of if I was eating a big plate of spaghetti and I just decided to dump some of it an inch around the plate on the table. Not appropriate. Yeah. Not okay.
And you're not going to eat it. You're not going to want to go after that.
And nobody's table is going to be happy about that, But yeah, I think that you're 100% right with this. You just got to give guys opportunities as much as you can, especially right now. It's early in the season. This is the kind of thing where in all of sports, you can see it. If you give guys a little bit of time early on, they produce, it builds on their, and they build on it
completely,
and they get better as the year goes along. So go ahead.
Just to kind of piggyback on what that thought right there is, that when these guys do come back, when you do get Chaz back, you get Brantley back, you get Altuve back, it is unfortunate that there's guys that are going to fall victim and fall out of that lineup. But the benefit is, later in the season, with all these at-bats these guys have gotten, it makes your bench that much stronger and gives Dusty more options late in the game if he needs them.
Yeah, and you have different styles of hitting. You've got a guy like Dubon who hits for average. You've got a guy like Julks and Diaz who both have a little bit of pop. You can bat guys from the left side of the plate and the right side of the plate. You're right. The flexibility is great. So let's talk about another positive though, and that is, while all these injuries are happening, everything else, we still have Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. And
thank goodness.
Last night, look, Javier was great last night. He had that one inning where he gave up 3 runs, but he went 7 strong. Abreu, like you said, gave up that 1 run. I mean, like, he's human, I guess. But
well, they were just duck snorts too. I mean, that's duck one of those painful innings as a pitcher where you just soft contact, and all of a sudden it runs on the board, and you're like, dude, I made all my pitches and these guys just got jammed.
Duck snort is a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one in a long time.
Well, I mean, it's duck snort or duck fart. I mean, take your pick.
Both good. Both
just excellent. A couple of farts out there. You're like,
a gork.
Exactly. If you're hitting, they're delicious. If you're pitching, they're agonizing.
Oh, yeah. But they did get a win, which is good, over the Mariners, who still are really struggling. I mean, they're 3.5 out, but it's just, they feel weird. They just don't feel like all the hype. And they have had some injuries too, obviously. But the Astros are just good in Seattle, period. Well, I should say against Seattle. And Yordan with the crusher, and then Tucker to straightaway center field.
Dagger.
I mean, what was crazy about that too is that ball was hit a mile in the air. What was the launch angle on that thing? I mean, it must have been like 40 degrees or something, and yet he still hit it out at like 410.
Yeah, Yordan's was massive. I know that thing was up there forever, ended up 408 feet away, but Tucker's was exactly the same distance. But the height on Yordan's, Statcast gave us a number of 145 feet at peak. So it was pretty ridiculous how far he hit that ball up in the air and had it carry that far. But how about, you talked about the Astros domination. I had to make a note of this last night on my scorecard. All time, 118. Well, now it's 119 to 72 against the Seattle Mariners for the Astros.
Crap. I didn't. Wow. Yeah. Now that's
crazy.
Well, I saw somebody change the Wikipedia entry on Seattle. They changed the name of the owner of the team to Yordan Alvarez last night.
Yes, that makes perfect sense because he is their daddy.
And I will say this about Seattle: is Big Dumper the best nickname of all time?
It could be.
It could be.
I mean, it fits. The guy embraces it. I mean, and fans love it. It's great.
I mean, it's just it's like borderline obscene, but also just borderline brilliant. I just can't with the Big Dumper.
Yeah, when the body fits the nickname, you're like, oh.
And it just has a weird, like the way it sounds, like the Big Dumper.
But is there an inside joke to that? Do we know?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to know. If there is, I really don't want to know because it's TMI. It's going to be like that gum wall. It's going to be exactly. So we get JP France today versus Ty France. The battle of the Frances and the 2-letter first names.
Civil War.
Exactly. So I'm wondering, have you got your joke cannon loaded and ready to fire today? Because it seems like there's plenty of good ones available.
Yeah, somebody may be Les Miserables, right? After one of those at-bats.
See?
Yeah, there's going to be a revolution.
Burst out, Vive la France.
Yeah.
It's going to be
exactly.
There's going to be some good
Vive
ones.
our France.
Exactly. It's going to be strong. Talk about croissants all you like. I feel like it's if you if at some point you're like, just get one of those.
Maybe after every punch out, I throw that out there. I like this.
It's strong. There's got to be some good ones. I do.
Parlez-vous strikeouts?
No, if any French people hear that accent, Plummer, I mean,
There's a little southern twinge on it.
Dude, you were in Montreal, for Christ's sake. You got.
Yeah, all I know is Tabak Knock.
And that doesn't even sound like French.
Yeah, you're going to have to bleep that out when this thing plays in Montreal if I say that again.
That doesn't even sound like, it sounds like Dutch or something. Doesn't even sound like French.
Blum grounds out to second base again. The guy in the seats is Tabak Knock.
I don't know what it means, but it sounds amazing.
Think the worst word ever, and there it is in French.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah,
great. It's good to know
something on here.
It's every day, every single day. So about JP France, though, I just said
Freudian slip. Got him.
I can't believe that just happened. That was not intentional at all. Yeah. My God, JP France. JP France pitching today. What do we know about him? I mean, he's been in the minors for 6 years. He's got a porn stash that it would rival anyone's.
Yeah, it's delicious. That lip candy is beautiful.
He's got the goggles. I mean, I don't know anything about him. I actually saw him pitch in Sugar Land. He looked good. But I want, what is his situation? Like, what are we seeing? What do we expect to see from him? Like, what kind of pitches does he throw? I mean, what is the scouting report on this guy?
I'm going to have to do some serious homework, and I should have done it before I got on here because I don't have that answer. I mean, I've got bios and things like that. Yeah. And I'm trying to dig. I actually started. I've got a page pulled up for Fangraphs, but I can tell you that he was drafted in the 14th round in 2018, and he's spent the last 6 years in the Astros minor leagues. Pitched at Tulane. I think he majored in something really interesting. I don't know if I can remember it, but
I hope it's French history.
Could you imagine if it was?
So good.
Yeah, TK's got all the information on him, but I know that
TK probably knew it at the beginning of the season. Right.
You know who else is good at that is Sparks. Steve Sparks really gets into the weeds and figures some of this stuff out. Where especially I suck and I go over there 10 minutes before game time and go, Sparky, what do you got on this guy?
Especially pitchers. Especially pitchers, man. He's rock solid when it comes to pitchers. You hear him on there, and he's like, yeah, blah 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 blah. He's like just ripping off stats from like when he was in the high A ball and stuff. It's just insane. I'm going to be real interested to watch. More than anything, I'm going to be real interested to watch how he appears on the mound. Like, there's something about guys like when you watch Christian Javier, for example. There's like a sort of a calmness to them when they're on the mound, right? They don't get rattled, they don't get And then there are guys who get really emotional, but they only get emotional after the fact. You see that with guys like Abreu, and you see that with McCullers, obviously. I'm going to be real interested to see his demeanor, because the demeanor, I feel like, tells you a lot about how a pitcher handles things. And I hope that to me, he's, when I saw him pitch at Sugar Land, I can't discern much from, sitting. I don't know. I'm not a catcher, so I can't really tell you. And they didn't tell you. I know his fastball was, mid 90s, low to mid 90s. But I think the thing that was interesting to me is he did have a demeanor. It was pretty calm. He seemed pretty chill up there. And I wonder if that's going to translate into the majors.
Well, I just love the fact, I don't know if you saw the interview that he gave. He knew this on Wednesday and showed up here Friday. He'll be activated before the game, so they'll have to make a roster move. And one could assume it's going to be Matt Gage. I'm not sure. Yeah. But, his interview was great. He was kind of excited and telling the story about how he knew on Wednesday, couldn't tell anybody, kept it under wraps, flew to, had to get a connecting flight, had 8 minutes in between, had a nice quip about, the fastest mile he ever ran was in between those two flights to make sure he made it up here to Seattle.
Right.
And here he is. But there was a little bit, he started talking about his parents and his family and getting here to the big leagues. And there was a little bit of emotion in there. So I appreciate the hell out of that, because this day and age to toil for 6 years in the minor leagues is tough. You're watching guys race past you in 2-3 years, and then you have the mental fortitude to be able to continue to fight to reach this goal. He's going to be amped up. He's going to be excited. You may see a little extra juice on that fastball, or maybe a little extra spin on those sliders, but I want to see it too. And hopefully he's excited enough, mature enough at the age of 28 to go out there and provide a good start for the Houston Astros. I'm kind of excited to see what he's got. He's facing, you talk about a lineup that you're going to face. This is a lineup that is pitchable too, that they have a ton of swing and miss this year too.
Right. Absolutely. I feel like with him too, he just seemed like, again, when I watched him pitch just a little bit, and I watched a few highlights yesterday just to kind of get a general feeling about it. He does have this sort of like, sort of chill demeanor. So I'm going to be real interested to see if that holds up. That's the big thing. And you're right.
If you can rock that mustache and bring it to the show, there's a little something in there. There's a little moxie we may not know about until we see him pitch.
He looks like Raleigh Fingers or something. It's a throwback.
It's pretty nice.
It's a throwback. Dennis Eckersley is what that coming down.
It's almost a foo, man. It kind of stops at the lip,
And that matched with the goggles, though. I think that's really, to me, because that shows that someone either A, is not at all concerned with their sense of style and doesn't care what you think, or B, is very concerned with their sense of style and thinks this is the coolest thing they've ever worn. Like that's the kid, either the kid who goes to class and doesn't give a crap what anybody thinks, or the kid who goes to class and knows everybody thinks he's cool. I don't know which one is better, frankly. I think they're both kind of awesome.
Let's hope he pitches into the latter.
Exactly. Agreed. Okay, a couple of oddball notes before we finish up here. The first, I don't know if you saw this in the paper, but Jose Altuve was burgled on opening day.
Oh, man, dude.
Right?
I heard about this when it happened. Yeah, it's terrible.
I don't think anybody really knew about it in the general public until apparently they broke into his house on opening day around 8:30 in the evening. They arrested 4 people. It was apparently two people who went in. One person drove the getaway car, and then the girlfriend of one of them who obstructed police when they tried to arrest him. They stole nearly $500,000 in watches and jewelry. And one of my favorite stories is in the arrest, one of them ran on foot, and they had a dog that was sniffing around trying to find him, and the dog didn't find him, but he found one of the Rolexes. So that's how they ended up. Like, I guess this guy did steal Jose Altuve's stuff. So Blummer, my first question to you is, where do you keep the millions of jewelry that you have? I'm assuming in a safe, correct?
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't have anything on display. Everything's locked up. Because
Altuve apparently forgot to set his alarm. Now, this is not his fault, obviously. No. I hate thieves. As someone who's...
you're going to get caught. I love... I mean, the cojones to go into a big old house and steal $500,000. I mean, that's a lot of money.
The big question is, did they know it was Jose Altuve's house? I wonder.
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't been in his house. I can't. I mean, unless he's got a couple of monuments and jerseys hanging in every room, you probably don't know. I'm not sure, but
he lives in Hedwig Village, and so that's a nice neighborhood with a lot of nice houses. So, and they picked one that the alarm wasn't on, But why did it
have to be Altuve's house, man?
Right, of all people, like that's not cool.
God,
everybody's going to be like, listen, man, if you look, break into the hotel room of one of the Dodgers or something when they're in town, right? Take that guy out, right? I'm
not encouraging it, but
clearly, but if you're going to make a decision of this level, let's do that.
Why Altuve, man? You jerks.
So terrible. God. Look, as someone who has, amongst his professions, has been a photographer and a musician, I can tell you I've lost thousands of dollars to thieves over the years. I had a bag of lenses stolen out of my car that was like several $1,000s. I had 4 guitars stolen out of my front room of my house. I mean, it just goes on. The list goes on, and it's part of the deal when you're in those professions. You know that they're easy to steal, they're easy to pawn. So I hate them. It sucks. Don't steal, people. No. Pay for things. I mean, if you can't afford a Rolex, I can't afford a Rolex. So guess what? I'm wearing an Apple Watch.
Yeah. The only Rolex I got was given to me.
There you go. Hey, if you got it, I'm just going to say protect it. That's all I'm going to say. Whatever you got to do. So last thing, I brought it up at the beginning. So one of the people listens to us and follows me on Twitter, Harry Brinkman, who goes by the Brinkmaster on Twitter, apparently. He brought up, I mentioned that I thought that this, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen the clip of Wander Franco catches a ground ball and sort of tosses it in the air to himself and then fires a guy out at first. I thought it was pure awesomeness, frankly. I thought it was beautiful. I mean, it's stupid and kind of weird, but it reminded me of like the no-look pass by in football by what's his name from the Chiefs,
Mahomes.
By Mahomes, like the no-look. Like there's just stuff. I find that kind of flair. Like if you can do it, it's great. Now, if you screw up, obviously, then it's on you.
Ooh.
But he thinks that you will disagree with me and you will find it to be showboating. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The real question: does Jeff Flum find Wander Franco's activities showboating?
It was obviously unnecessary. I get that the ball was hit hard and you had that kind of time, but I can't remember the manager's name in Major League for the Indians.
Okay. Yeah,
and I know it's the Guardians now, but in the movie it's the Indians.
Right.
But when Hayes made that basket catch, he goes, "Nice play, Hayes. Don't ever effing do it again." You know, that's what I kind of recalled. And you know, there's bat flipping, there's strikeout struts, there's things like that. But I've never seen an infielder, you know, flip the baseball or find it necessary to do that. I always took my time. If I had a rocket hit at me, I just pat the glove a couple of times, make the runner run a little bit. And we always said that too. We'd like, make him run and then throw it across there and make it a bang, bang play. But if you can do it, you better get the out, because in the end, the result is all that matters.
Right.
But I guarantee you there's about 95,000 Little League coaches at that moment watching that game went, "Oh, no," because they knew every 10 and 11-year-old is going to try and do that now.
You know, when I saw it, I mean, I was like, I love fun in any sport, you know, when guys are having fun. That's why I hate the restrictions on celebrations in the NFL. Like, come on, man. Let them.
I know. I'm with you on that.
As you once said,
let the kids be kids, man. Exactly. There we go. Now you know how I feel.
Let's have a little fun. But I will say this. When he tossed that ball up, I was like, there was the first word that came to mind is a word that I probably heard mostly from announcers in sports, and that was a nifty move. It's like that was nifty. It was nifty. I mean, it was just like, and the thing is, he put some backspin on it. I don't know. I'm enthralled by guys who can do things that I can't do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it.
Then he bare hands it and throws it. I'm like, damn.
Unreal.
Part of it's jealousy too, because I didn't have the beanbag to do that. Right. I was like, man, I had to make this place or else I was getting released. Right.
Well, yeah, that's always the blessing and the curse, right? Is that you can do it, but you're taking your life and your livelihood in your own hands. In this case, literally.
Yep.
All right. Well, there you go. The Brinkmaster. Apparently, Blummer's not entirely in agreement with me, so you win. I'll send you. I'll send you a free subscription to something. I don't know what. I'll think about it. I will definitely hit you back up on Twitter and tell you though, and give you your props, because I don't run from these challenges. You see, I'll let people. Hey, I'm more than willing to admit when I've done something wrong or said something wrong. There's no reason not to. Because look, it's like the books. They have the books for dummies and the books for idiots. I always buy the books for idiots, right? Because I don't consider myself a dummy. Am I an idiot? Oh, most definitely. I can certainly be an idiot at times. I'm no dummy. Idiot that. Because idiot implies some intelligence, but you make bad choices. That's what I kind of feel like. All right, Blummer.
That's good.
Any final thoughts before the couple games in Seattle? And then you head to it's the Angels, baby.
Yeah, we get to go see the Anthony Rendon. I think Shohei Ohtani's going to pitch in that series down in Anaheim. So there's going to be some good times.
I was going to ask if we knew the pitching lineup because obviously,
I think Ohtani's throwing one of those days. It might be the 9th. I'm not sure.
That guy's must see baseball, man. I mean, he's just so good. I mean, I saw somebody put his slash line for pitching and hitting up, and it was just. Are you kidding?
It's ridiculous to be that good, man.
We can only hope to dare to dream, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what I can tell you is try to survive the frigid depths of Seattle. Don't eat any gum off that wall for the love of God. No. Don't even go down that alleyway, man.
No, you take a wrong turn, you're like, oh my gosh.
I feel like gum that's that much gum that's there for that long is eventually going to come to life and form its own entity. And then we're all going to be in trouble. It's going to be
it's a biohazard.
Something out of a horror movie. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be back next week with a fresh pod brought to you by Bet Online. Huge thanks to all of you guys for listening and subscribing all across the world. You're always great. I have no complaints whatsoever. Mm-hmm. We really appreciate all of it. Very thankful that you join us here on our ramblings. And keep it coming. Have a great weekend. And as always, go Astros.